Welcome, everyone. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time today. I'm Jerry Gratton, co-founder and chief people officer at Trailblaze Partners, and I'm going to let my partner Rhys tell you a little bit more about them in a second, because I'm moderating today, but I am super excited to have this panel of experts with me today. So on behalf of Bucketlist and Trailblaze, I'm really excited about our first special guest today. So Michelle Clayton is Director of People Operations at Visier. She has 20 plus years of experience in talent and organizational effectiveness with growing organizations around the world. And her approach to organizational strategy is rooted in people and data, which is why she's found a really great home at Visier. She loves challenging organizations to stay true to their purpose while moving beyond the constraints of tradition to see what's possible, achievable, and sustainable. Welcome, Michelle. So glad that you're here.
Thanks, Jerry.
You're
Excited to be here.
You're welcome. To my right is my partner, Rhys, and he's our CEO on the panel today, CEO of Trailblaze Partners. Rhys is a dad, he's an entrepreneur, he's an avid tennis player, and he really values learning, growth, and family, and this has influenced all of his career decisions. He believes, and I live this with him every day, that if you're not scared of the next step, you're probably in the wrong place. Evidence of this is that by age 27, Rhys was already leading a team of 700 plus indirect reports. He loves solving people problems, and his love of solving people problems has always led to positions where competitive advantage is won and lost based on attracting, engaging, and retaining people. Sounds very familiar to all of us, right? Welcome, Rhys.
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, representing Bucketlist is Rebecca Chen. Rebecca is the content and community manager at Bucketlist. She's passionate about all things community, as well as employee happiness and well-being. She brings her background in mental health, SaaS, and technology into the HR tech space to better understand the needs of today's organizations and their employees. That was a mouthful. Welcome all to the panel.
Thanks, Jerry.
Awesome. Okay, what are we doing today? We're going to look at this topic of P&C and ROI. So our topic is, I think, is really at the heart of what all of us on this webinar are trying to do every day. We want to help our companies succeed. We do this by using strategy to solve problems and capitalize on opportunities. So I believe, and I know everyone on this panel believes, that HR, people and culture strategy should be integral, maybe embedded into our overall company strategy, because the biggest pain points that our organizations face are needed. They need HR to solve them. So here's what we're going to look at today. We've got this agenda here, and we're going to try and get through all of this, and we're going to get through it by talking about some of these big challenges that we face and some of the tools that we all have in our HR, people and culture toolboxes and toolkits to solve those. And we're going to look at a framework for developing a P&C strategy. So there's the agenda. You see it in front of you. It's always hard to get super interactive in these, but we do want to welcome your questions in the Q&A panel. If we don't get to them during the session, we'll address them after. I'm going to be asking the questions, and I'll have some for you as well as the panel, so pay attention and be prepared to answer some polls. So without further ado, let's get going here on our first, I think the first way to sort of address this, which is how do we, how do I identify your organization's biggest pain points? And I think we have to understand what those are first before we start to figure out how we tackle them from a P&C lens. So I'm going to go first to the CEO in the group. And Rhys, I'm going to ask you, how do you go about identifying your organization's biggest pains? What are some of the steps that you'd take?
Yeah, I mean, it really, first thing I'm going to look at is what's working and what's not. Where are we, and where are we against our competition, and primarily where are we against ourselves yesterday? But typically I'm going to look at revenue, I'm going to look at profitability, I'm going to look at where are we at from a culture perspective, so we're attracting and retaining the right people. And that's about it. And once you get into those, like, I know that's very high level, but once you get deeper into each of those, you start to see more specific problems and the things that you can actually go and solve. But that's kind of the hierarchy of the banks.
Great. Thanks. And because we're here and we're looking at this through an HR people and culture lens, and we've got an expert in and oh, Michelle, you hate when I use that term. We have someone who's kind of familiar with HR data and people and culture data. So Michelle, from that lens, how can we use HR data or to help identify these pain points that organizations are facing? Maybe particularly, the ones that aren't top of mind to the CEO or the CFO in the organization.
Well, I think foundationally, people data is business data. And that, I think, is the most important starting point, because there are very few jobs that are 100% automated. Even at some point, someone designed a software program to automate something. So there is a person, or there are people and systems behind every business metric, behind every business decision. And looking at something like revenue or customer retention or anything in your business without looking at the people, I think, is a huge missed opportunity. And I think a lot of people are on this webinar because they know that inherently. When I think about and how my teams and teams that I work with have used people data to build their strategy or to adapt and take different actions to achieve that strategy, there's a few things in mind. So one is there is a method and a rhythm to looking at the data. So that's going to be aligned with your business cycle, your sales cycle, whenever your customer renewals are happening, for example, what the big retail time of year is, if that's your business, et cetera. And looking at people data alongside those decisions, I think, is critical. The other piece is building out some time to explore, because there's the data that you go and know and your CEO wants you to look at, and then there's things you haven't considered before. So looking at what just exists in your HR tech stack, what are your leaders learning from the one-on-ones? If your people team is conducting exit interviews, truly how many of us actually have a rhythm to looking at the qualitative data that comes out of exit interviews? But all of that in combination can give you something else to look at and help you understand what is truly a pain point in terms of the systems or the people, et cetera, and take steps with that. So I think, at a high level, that's what I'd recommend. But, can I give you one example, something I'm thinking?
Please, thank you.
So I think about something like sales or revenue. So Rhys just talked about how that's important to him. So that's important to me in people and culture and HR as well. But I'm not just looking at the top line revenue number. I'm also looking at where are people dropping out? What's the attrition rate at different points in the sales cycle? Are salespeople dropping out just after getting a particular commission payment during the year? Are your frontline business development reps dropping out because they can't get someone or a number of prospects to a certain point in the sales funnel? So going in, combining those two types of data helps me make better decisions and advise leaders, and then helps those leaders make better decisions about how to adapt their systems as well.
Great.
Can I jump
Fantastic.
in? Yeah. I love that point, Michelle. And I think like revenue and profit are the lagging indicators, and those people metrics that you're talking about, and the cut, and we're not talking about the customer ones just yet, but the people metrics and the customer metrics, those are the leading indicators. And so we can get ahead of P&L problems by focusing on those numbers that you're talking about. So it's a great example. Thanks.
So good. And thank you for starting to take us beyond the engagement survey in terms of the data that people in culture can provide. What a rich set of examples that you just provided there. So thank you, Michelle. Now I'm going to throw it to the audience now, because I want to know And I'm going to ask my friends at HCI to run this poll for us. I think so. I'm asking, what are the biggest pain points at your organization? Like, what are the challenges that your organization is striving to overcome? So I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you. And we're going to build this little word gram. What do you call this again?
Word cloud.
Word cloud.
You.
Thank you.
I was gonna say word map. It's not a map.
Word cloud. Look at this turnover, engagement. They're prominent right now, but we've got recruiting, retention, compensation. What are some of those other problems that are maybe not the ones that you always think about on the HR team or the people and culture team, like sales, profitability? Maybe there's new markets that you're coming into. Any more?
Right now.
Yeah, now we got a few more. Here we go. Oh, yes. Definitely got an HR people and culture audience. Look at competition in the market, though, popping up, budgeting, budgets. Things are tight right now for a lot of organizations. Everyone's being asked to cut. Oh, yes. I love this. Look at this. This is so cool.
This is great. Yeah, I love this. It's kind of like a race.
Regulations.
Yeah, we should place bets.
Regulations. Yes. Okay.
Still got some people typing there.
We got some people typing still?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm going to, I'll throw it to the panel. What are you seeing in here? Anything surprise you in these results, or on the alternative, anything that you're not at all surprised to see in big, bold letters?
I'm finding this so relatable. We are
Nice.
running our engagement survey right now. We are looking at our budget. So definitely relating with the people watching today.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love the all caps poaching. Stop taking my people.
Yes. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. I think
Maybe
we're gonna put a time, we're gonna cap the time on this, on that particular. So that was I think, to Michelle's point, very relatable. There's some commonality in what we're seeing in those results. But there's also every organization has some unique challenges that they face. Now, for the purpose of a 45 to 50 minute webinar, we can't address some of the unique. So we're going to go to the common. And when we think about organizations, and when we're talking to organizations about their biggest problems and coming to them with people and culture solutions for these problems, this is what we often see. We're seeing, recruiting, retention. We're seeing maintaining customer relationships. We're seeing driving sales. These are big problems, and your list may look something like this. If some of these things aren't on your list today, they'll probably be on your list at some point in the future. But this is also, the source of this is also an HBR study that was done in 2021 that said these are the 4 most common issues that companies face. So what I'm going to ask our panel to help us do for the rest of this is I'm going to ask us to navigate through some of these issues, and really with that people and culture HR lens, and through that strategy, how can we be in a position to solve some of these issues? So that's what we intend to do. These are some of the issues that we're going to address. And we're going to get started with the productivity and retention. And then we're going to look at customer retention and sales growth. So when I say productivity and retention, I mean employee productivity and retention. And then we'll look at sort of the on the other side of the fence sometimes of like our sales and marketing teams attracting and retaining customers and driving sales growth. I think that's the big question of the day. How do we impact this from a PNC perspective? So When it comes to employee productivity and retention, I mean, let's start with productivity, Rhys. And as a CEO, you know, that's an ops problem to solve. Our people aren't being productive. So what do we have to do?
Well, as a CEO and a recovering ops guy, I'd say if it's ops solving this problem or the P&C team solving this problem, it's typically still a people problem to solve. You know, most of the time our ops teams are doing a really good job engineering process to be efficient, measuring the right outputs, all of that kind of thing. And the gap is engagement or retention or one of these things that, you know, our P&C teams are really good at working on. And so whether you're heading the project or influencing the project, I'd say this is almost always a people problem. And
I guess at the heart of this is I've been in many a boardroom and sitting around a table, and employee productivity is an issue.
Yeah,
right. Our people aren't working hard enough, fast enough. We're not producing enough. We're not acquiring enough customers.
We see this so often with our clients. You know, they'll come out of an executive team meeting or an executive retreat or whatever, and the team has decided that productivity is a problem, and they've often made this decision without a ton of data. And so when they come and talk to us, and we say, well, you know, step one is like, where are you at? Let's find out, are you actually better off, worse off? And how we do that is we'll take a look at, you know, what do you look like historically? So how do you compare to yourself? And then how do you compare to the rest of the market? So to go through a benchmarking process. Revenue per employee, you can see on there, this is one source of data. There's many different sources of data on this stuff. So, you know, it's tough to get consistent, but at least you'll be consistently inaccurate. But revenue per employee can be a really good indicator, and there's a lot of influences on it. You need to clean the number up, that kind of stuff, but it's a great place to start.
As soon as you said sources of data, I wanted to bring Michelle into the conversation. But so Michelle, how are you seeing organizations measuring employee productivity, or maybe how should they be? Where do you go find this data?
It's going to be different for every organization. And I wish there was the, you know, magic answer to say, this is the way to do it. But it comes back to people are unique, businesses are unique, and so are the systems that are unique. And so saying that each person on your team, for example, is going to have a single productivity measurement is probably not going to be super helpful, because we generally want people to do more than one thing. I guess it starts with that executive leadership team identifying what measurements are important to the organization. So the example, Rhys, that you discussed and is on the slide is, you know, productivity by profit, for example. But I think there's also, as an organization, need to figure out what stage of growth, what stage of profitability. If you're a B Corp or a not-for-profit, then what's your cost to serve or time to serve, et cetera. And then going and actually working backwards to say, what are the behaviors that are then important that people exhibit, and identifying which of those you want to measure and really focus on it. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing from organizations is when they get more specific, there's some organizations that still can do things like quantitative productivity. So that classic, you know, what's my output divided by how much time I spend. That might work in something that's software development related, where you have, or perhaps a call center, where you have repeated problems or challenges or work and sort of core hours that people work. Sure, that can work. For other roles, it doesn't. So what we're seeing actually is the re-rising of management by objectives, and really going back to basics. And as executives and HR leaders, partnering with our managers to say, what are your expectations? What does good productivity look like? Have you partnered with your team members on the real basics of performance management and made clear to them what their goals are? And then do you have in place frequent measurements? So it's some of those things that I think we as people and culture leaders take for granted, but don't always happen. And those are great sources of data as well, both qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Michelle. And that data, you know, as you said, so unique to each organization. But again, trying to address the most common solutions and the most common tactics and strategies that we can apply to this. Rhys, I'm gonna pass it to you to say to address, so let's get specific. What are some of the tools that that are kind of within that people and culture domain that can impact productivity? And if you had to pick one, it's on the slide, what would your number one tool be?
I guess I have to pick that
one.
But
well, you told me in advance. So,
well, and I think to your point, like, you don't want to just throw solutions at a problem. You've got to go through that diagnosis process, and the level of nuance that Michelle's talking about in the data that they're able to produce with their clients at Visier really helps in diagnosing, like, what is the root cause of this problem, how big is the problem, and how far can we move the needle. And so, to double down on that first step, it's like, where are we, where can we go, and then where do we want to be by when? And that's kind of the basics of the strategy stuff here. And for us, we think org design is the number one tool that a P&C team has in its tool belt. There's some guides to how we think good org design happens, and if we're working with a client, these are kind of the pillars that we're making sure this is how org design happens. However, it's because why we believe org design is the number one is because that's like, where are you putting your hours, and what's the output of those hours? Where are you putting your time? And when you go through it in this process of human, like, let's recognize that there's a human impact to this. And if you let your finance team do the org design, often that gets forgotten, but there's a human impact. Sorry, finance people out there. But if there's a human impact on this, not just a human impact, but you're putting humans in seats. And so we've got to think about, is this the right fit and all that sort of stuff. So engaging all of the business leaders in org design is really important. Pragmatic. There's harsh realities to business, and particularly in an environment like what we're working in right now, we can't give up the now in search of the future in a way that we may have before. So investing as much as we were in growth expectations, that kind of thing, we really, we need to take care of this year and survive this year in a lot of our businesses. And so we've got to make sure our org design is pragmatic in that way, but also doesn't sacrifice our future. It's flexible. So we often talk about more pockets. We borrowed this from the CEO of Kodak, who he was interviewed about how Kodak has lasted as long as it does. And this was in relation to his strategy and them being a 100+ year company. He said, we just have more pockets than our competition. And what he meant by that is we have more options. We're really flexible. And so we keep our options open. And we think one of the places that happens best is in org design. And so org design is constantly changing and constantly trying to keep up. And then finally, are we getting a return on what we're doing? And so using some of those metrics that Clayton is Michelle is talking about in getting really nuanced on and using MBO or getting really nuanced on how we're measuring this stuff. So we know, are we getting a return or are we not? Because there's significant limitations with just looking at revenue per employee. We need to go deeper, and we need to look at that by team, by function, by output. What are we actually trying to deliver, and how much is that deliverable costing us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Rhys. And I tell you, one thing that I've learned about org design, organizational design as a tool is it's a project that's never complete. Your organization is always in transition to something or from something to the next thing. And so this is work that never really ends for an executive team led by your P&C leaders. Mm-hmm. But let's park productivity for a second and move to the second. So employee productivity and employee retention. And so let's move to retention. And Michelle, I'll throw it to you first again from a how do we know that retention is a problem? And do we just compare and benchmark against others in our organization, like, this data set kind of implies, or what else should we be doing to measure retention?
I think this is a great opportunity as business partners to be partnering strategically with our line leaders, our operation leaders, et cetera. But this is where I think it's important to look at those other business indicators that are important to your business. So what is the quality of your product or service like? Also look at your employees. So this is where your engagement data can be handy. So looking at engagement in combination with what your turnover is like, because not all turnover is bad. And I'd go even further than what's on the slide and really be focused on your voluntary regrettable turnover. So we know people are going to leave and we do want people to stay, but I think most of us also know that people are going to leave for a variety of reasons. And so looking at the employee retention more specifically can also help you figure out where can your line managers spend their time. To your second part of your question there, Jerry, in terms of data sources, I think it's always helpful to benchmark, to say what are organizations like me doing. But when it comes to retention, I do think it makes sense to start with your organization, because maybe there were too many people and your team members are just as engaged as they were before people left, and now they're doing more engaging work. For example, maybe their role grew as a result of someone else leaving. So it's not always bad. But in terms of data sources, some of the ones that I think most of us on this webinar have access to are look first in your own HR tech stack. So more and more of our HRISs, employee experience platforms, survey platforms have access to our HRISs and to employee start and stop dates. So they're able to look at our own data and say, okay, this is what your turnover rate is. Oftentimes they'll have available benchmarks. Sometimes it's built into the software, or sometimes if you just ask your customer success manager, they can provide that. So I think that's a great starting point. And for folks on this who are in North America, I think actually the government labor statistics can be helpful. So going in for the US, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, their JOLTS survey, super helpful. And then for anybody from Canada on the call, for example, Statistics Canada, they're surveys that we as employers have to answer. And not every one of those survey results is going to be helpful, but they can be a really good starting point to figure out, is this important to me and what are other companies like right now?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, jump in quickly, and then I want to ask the audience for their opinion on this.
Yeah, and I just wanted to double down on that publicly available information for the productivity data. I forgot to say that before. I haven't found similar in the US, but I know in Canada, BDC publishes revenue per employee by industry. And so if you type in some basic stuff from your P&L, you can get like benchmarking online immediately around that particular metric. Again, imperfect metric, but you can get some industry data on that metric really quickly.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rhys. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And so even if we're just measuring based on our own historic data within our organization, we can learn stuff about retention. But the question that I'd love to launch next in the poll is, do you find your company is at, above, or below your industry averages when it comes to turnover and retention? So the topic is retention, turnover. Do you find your company is at or above industry averages? Let's go to a poll and see what we got. Okay. Boom, right off the bat, we're right. We've got a strong average and above average. Great. How many, I guess this isn't a question that I can ask, but I'll just throw it out there rhetorically. Because I know there were times in my career as a leader of people and culture where I didn't know what the industry averages were, or I didn't have an industry that I thought mapped really closely to my industry. And so I was like, I'll just look at, am I trending? What direction am I trending? Is it going in the right direction or not? Yeah. So this is interesting. We've got a lot of people that feel like they're right kind of smack in the middle. Doesn't mean it's good. It just means they know that they're kind of in there with the rest of the mix, coping with whatever they're coping with around employee retention and turnover.
As a functional leader in the business and ops leader, one of the ways that the people and culture team brought me the most value was to put attrition and turnover in context for my particular part of the organization. So knowing that the industry average is this, you're well above, but that's to be expected. You're actually below what we would have historically seen, because otherwise, we'd spend a ton of time and resources in trying to push that number down when we didn't need to. We're investing in the wrong place.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, HCI, for running that poll. We'll move on here. And Rhys, just along the same vein as we did with productivity, I'd love to hear what you believe is the number one tool that P&C leaders have to address retention, and particularly, I think, right now in 2023.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you all see this day in, day out, and we see it with every single one of our clients, where the rubber hits the road on the majority of our projects or our initiatives or the things that we're trying to change in the business is with our leaders. And they have an outsized level of control over the employee experience and over retention, and so influencing them is really important. We typically see two key problems with the clients that we're working with. The first is around emerging leaders, and we have, in a lot of industries, we have a lot of leaders who are retiring out, and so we're getting people being promoted into leadership roles well before they would have previously. And so in these industries, they in previous kind of work generations, they could have relied on technical expertise a little bit more than they're able to now. And so they're having to rely on leadership skill and leadership, technical leadership skill that just isn't there. And a lot of these companies don't have the systems and processes to support that early promotion into a leadership role. And that's kind of supervisory through to middle management. We do sometimes see that at the executive leader level as well, where we're seeing executive leaders in executive positions a lot earlier in their career than we would have previously seen. Particularly in tech, we see that really often. But more often than not, the problem with the executive leadership team is, how do we help our executive leaders transition from leaders of function to leaders of business? And what I mean by that is, we often see, like, not to pick on the tech team, but take a tech leader, and they're going to come into the annual budget process, and they're going to fight tooth and nail for the budget that they want for their team, for the headcount that they want for their team, without really thinking too much about what's right for the business. And so there's a lot that goes into this, but how do we help them make that mindset and skill transition from, yes, I'm a leader of tech. Yes, I need to take care of the tech problems, and that is my primary role. But over and above that, I need to take care of what's right for the business. And so how that transition looks after is, you'll see a tech leader coming in and saying, actually, I can see that the customer experience team needs these resources more than I do, because these are the goals of the organization. And so they'll willingly give those resources over to the CX organization. So there's team cohesion problems, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into making that transition. But that's the problem in the transition that people are looking to make.
Got to invest in our leaders if we want to have impact in the organization.
That's right.
100% believe that. Thank you, Rhys. Thanks, Michelle, for taking us through those first two. Rebecca, you're here, and I haven't thrown to you yet, so it's your turn now. But Rebecca's going to take us through. I'd love you to sort of speak to how P&C strategy and tactics can really drive customer retention and sales growth. So I'll throw it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jerry. And also a big thank you to you, Rhys and Michelle, so far, since you've both set up the stage really nicely for me to dive into the section about customer retention and sales growth. And so to start, how exactly does the sales side of things relate to engaged employees? Well, we find that happy employees often result in happy customers, which results in customer retention and growth. And I think that we all love a good experience with customer service. So here are just a few quick stats on the screen just to talk a little bit about that power of customer satisfaction. I personally find stats super great for putting numbers to the things that I'm feeling, because for me, customer service is definitely a huge factor when it comes to loyalty and referrals. And Rhys, Jerry, and Michelle, I see all nodding, so I guess that's resonating. Just as a quick example, I've stayed with my phone carrier for over 5 years and ignored all the other promotions going on over the years, just because I really love the quick and friendly service I've been getting through the chat box customer service. And on the screen here, the 59%, I thought that stat was super interesting, just because I also believe that now it's the baseline for expectation is not just friendly service, but also having that service be super accessible and efficient as well. And so for today, just really wanted to highlight two ways to drive customer retention and sales growth. The first strategy will be through core values, and the second will be around utilizing awards. And in the section, just really wanted to highlight how this can be done through some stories and some examples. So to start, we can just dive into these core values here, and at a really high level, a way to work towards customer satisfaction is just to make sure that our core values are reflecting that, because these values will really help our teams work towards that common goal. Like Michelle was talking earlier about behaviors, core values, they really tell us what our business priorities are and what the appropriate behaviors look like. And on screen here, just have a couple examples from 4 large companies I was hoping we could all recognize. And the Whole Foods one here, has anyone else tried their cakes? Because I'm always satisfied and delighted when I see all thumbs up. So yeah, when I saw this core value for Whole Foods, was really happy to see that, because I think they are satisfying and delighting us there.
I love delighting.
Yeah, it's such a great word. Perfect. And sorry, Jerry, just gonna ask you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. No worries. But yes, in prepping for this section around core values, I became super curious as to what the most common company core values are, and was really happy to find the study done by Lucidity. And they say that the top 5 most common company core values are usually around teamwork, something around the customer, respect, integrity, and passion. And I just wanted to ask the lovely audience here today, I guess rhetorically, like you were asking earlier, Jerry, was Lucidity accurate in these observations? Are these kind of close to what your company core values are? And if you don't mind sharing in the chat, we'd love to hear what your core values are, and maybe the customer focused ones, since that's what we're talking about today. But I can ask Rhys, Jerry, and Michelle if y'all would like to share a couple of core values.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, number one on our list at Trailblaze is who, not what. And that's just about a people focus. And we believe that who we're working with matters
more important,
way more than what we're working on. But yeah, I think these line up pretty closely with what we would see commonly. I'm just thinking about our recent core values projects, and I've seen integrity show up, whether it's the headline or within one of the other core values. Yeah.
Sometimes we call some of these ones like integrity and respect as table stakes. Like they're there.
Everyone wants them.
Whether we name them or not, they're very important. Sorry, Michelle, maybe I'll throw to you.
No, it's actually, we recently redid our values about 3 years ago and took a hard look at what made us uniquely successful. And what we realized is that things like integrity, respect, teamwork are table stakes. And so we expect at a baseline everyone to do that, and our competitors are doing that as well. And so we really looked to the behaviors and the ways that we wanted to make decisions. And a couple examples for us are make it easy, and that incorporates the customer, it incorporates each other, it incorporates prospects even. That's an example. Another one for us that's really important is roll up our sleeves. So we believe in continual learning, and for leaders, stepping in and supporting the team when leadership or management, in some cases, that technical aspect isn't necessarily needed. So looking beyond what your job description is. That doesn't fit every company, but that fits for us.
I love that point around that you've got to line these up with what makes you what makes you different, and what's going to lead to the behaviors that drive competitive success for you in the market. Because if you don't keep that in mind, you can end up with a list that looks exactly like this, and you end up exactly like every other company.
Yeah. As timekeeper here, I'm going to throw it back to Rebecca.
These are great discussions. I think it really supplements the topic here today. So thank you all for sharing that. And on this next slide, since you've all shared, I guess I'll share one of ours too. So at Bucketlist, one of our core values is caring for customers and each other. And just for context, we do have 3 other core values, and they are get it done, raise the bar, and achieve life goals, because it's in our name, Bucketlist, just got to do that. And we found that there's a lot you can do with core values. And so I'll just give a quick example from the perspective of recognition. So one of our strategies is to tie every recognition that's given out in the company to one of our core values here. And in fact, if you don't pick a core value to associate it to, you can't post it on the platform. And so not only does this strategy ensure that everybody learns what the core values are and can recite them by heart if we're being tested, it also means that our team is constantly reflecting on what it means to live by the core values. So what does it look like to care for customers? What does it look like to get things done and raise the bar? It just really shows us what kinds of actions are acceptable in Bucketlist and what kinds of actions are being celebrated. And so at this point, Michelle, I wanted to actually throw it to you and ask, how have you seen organizations use their core values to drive customer retention and sales growth?
I actually relate it to what Rhys and Jerry were talking about, leadership development. So I think this is a great opportunity for the folks who are in your learning and development, your talent and organizational side of your people team to really look at what is in your competency model or capability model or skills framework, wherever you are in that journey. And does it, first of all, does it make sense to have different values from that? Or have you very clearly, obviously for people, built in the behaviors aligned with the values into the learning programs that people have, and therefore into the ways that people's performance is evaluated and the types of development opportunities they seek out on their own. So I think just having the values on a intranet or on the wall, we know doesn't work. And I think, again, if we really truly believe that values align behavior and drive decisions, well, then let's integrate it into what people learn and how they're evaluated. And that can be really simple in terms of reviewing what's in your leadership development program. Have you added an interactive learning component to your onboarding related to the values? There's lots of different opportunities from that perspective.
Yeah, such a good point. Yeah.
In the halls, not just on the walls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many ways you can do that. I won't add anything because you said it all.
Well, one thing I do want to add is I think what I've also seen work really well is share your values with your customers. And it's not just from a marketing point of view, but it really does level set expectations for the customer. So this is the type of service that you can expect. If being proactive is important and one of your values, then you can expect that I'm going to reach out to build a value plan with you. I'm going to connect with you from time to time. You don't have to reach out to me. If this is about making it easy, I want to ask you as the customer to tell me how I can make it easy for you. So I think all of that can really drive strong customer relationships and decrease time to value.
Yeah, well, and suppliers and strategic partners and share it with that whole network. Yeah.
Back to you, Rebecca. Time check.
Yeah, no, thank you, Michelle. I think that really solidifies that core values is just such a great strategy when it comes to building out culture and all of that. So next slide here, we'll go a bit into the second strategy, which is awards and rewards. And so the strategy of using awards can really be tied into the previous strategy of utilizing core values. I think this is just such a great combo for driving customer retention and sales. And to kick off the discussion around this, I'll start with an example here on the screen of this promoter award that we use at Bucketlist. And so like I shared on a previous slide, we really want to reward people for living that core value we have of caring for customers and each other. And so how does this promoter award work exactly? After we launch a client, we wait for 30 days and then we ask them, how likely are you to refer us to someone else? And when they give us their score from 1 to 10, we score ourselves based on the Net Promoter Score model. So 9 to 10s are promoters, 7 to 8s are open to competition, and 6 or below those scores, they're demoters. And so once we've done all that, we hand this award out to the team members who were involved with that launch for the client who's given us a 9 or a 10. And we make sure to celebrate this publicly during one of our monthly meetings, just to really highlight that this is a behavior that we want to be seeing. And on this next slide here, just because everybody likes seeing numbers, we thought it'd be cool to share an outcome. So the combination of utilizing our core values and having an award associated to it is a strategy that we were using at Bucketlist to drive this key behavior that we want to see, which is happy customers. And so our NPS score for 2022 came out to be 93, which was apparently high in the software industry, since 55 we're told is pretty high. So we're very, very proud of the score and really happy to see that come to fruition. And on this next slide here, just want to include a couple of bonus ideas. And of course, there are lots of ways to customize your rewards to recognize certain behaviors around customer experience that you want to see at your particular organization. So you don't have to use the MPS model. Just a couple of examples here. If, for example, you're in healthcare and you want to improve specifically patient care, it'll make sense to have an award around that. And in the hospitality and retail industry, we all know how important that 5 out of 5 stars on Google reviews or Yelp is. And so it would make a lot of sense as well to just have an award around that behavior to see more of it. And now we'll move on from customer experience and just dive a little bit deeper into this idea of driving sales through awards and incentives. So the core function of a sales program, of course, is to improve sales focus, sales team motivation, and reaching those targets. And so if we're giving awards around certain behaviors and outcomes, as we've been talking about, we will probably be seeing more of that behavior. And here are just some examples of categories we've seen people put awards around. So selling of specific products, growing market or mind share, completing training modules, and demonstrating product knowledge. And you could even do something around obtaining referrals. And Jerry, timekeeper, do I have time to share a quick story around the, I think this was the last slide.
We're coming right up to the time we got to throw it back to
all right.
HCI. So I want to try and wrap it up, but keep going.
Awesome. I'll just throw this question to Michelle then. So we were curious, how have you seen organizations use awards and incentive programs to drive customer retentions and sales growth?
I mean, sales people love a good award, don't they? Come on. There are so many trophies or virtual trophies and leaderboards that exist. What I've seen though, in the interest of time, work really well is, again, get really specific. So rather than just did somebody learn something, what works well, and this is where people and culture can partner with sales ops leaders, is where in the sales funnel are you missing opportunities, or are there gaps? And getting really specific around what are the behaviors that you want salespeople to exhibit and when, and really looking at, is there an award or is there a slight change to their sales compensation plan, for example, when payments are made, that you could look at. So rather than just increasing overall sales, it's, well, are you increasing the number of prospects that get from stage 1 to stage 2, or go from being a potential lead to a qualified lead? So that would be my recommendation and what I've seen work really well.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. And I'll just spend a really quick 30 seconds on this slide, Jerry. So in summary, just wanted to offer this really quick framework around utilizing core values and awards as a way to drive sales growth and customer retention. So step 1, define what behavior you want to influence and the outcomes that it should have. 2, create an award, and there's lots of bonus points for making it fun and catchy, so this catches on really easily. Number 3, communicate the program again and again, I would add, just because in marketing, we like to say that people need to see a message 7 times before it sticks. So promoting it again and again was super helpful there. Number 4, keeping things simple, making it super easy to participate and really clear how things work. Number 5, providing regular feedback, whether it's through a leaderboard or talking about it during meetings, and also encouraging people to celebrate together to kind of encourage that behavior again and again. And also, lastly, just to have really compelling rewards to go with the awards. And if you're offering a reward, making sure that it's what people want and what they find really meaningful. But of course, that's a topic for a whole other day. So now just passing back to Jerry, and I can wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And I can certainly say that, at Bucketlist, you live and breathe this stuff, that it's so nice to see an organization that practices what it preaches, and I can attest to that at your organization. So PNC driving improvements in productivity, employee retention, customer retention, sales growth. We've thrown around this term of PNC strategy, but we haven't talked about how to approach it. Rhys, you got a minute to talk about PNC strategy.
I can get it done. So you can see in front of you 3 tools. The first 2, Culture Canvas and Culture Building Formula, are really that's the good stuff in this. So the Culture Canvas is, how do we line our people and culture strategy up with our business strategy. And so in the core there, you can't see it, but when you get this document, you'll be able to core values, operating principles, what are our beliefs, what's our belief system? And to Michelle's point, how does that line up with who we are uniquely and what gives us a competitive advantage? Surrounding that are the supports. What language do we use? What stories get told? And do those further our core values? And finally, what are the artifacts in our organization? What's our workplace look like? Why do we give belts or trophies or those kinds of things? Like, what's the hands-on artifacts? So that's how we line up our people and culture strategy with the business strategy. How do we then execute that is through the culture building formula. This has 12 boxes, which is the 12 systems that go into actually implementing this. And again, Michelle, so many softballs. I really appreciate it. We then go, how do we build our values and our stories and our language into each of these systems, like succession planning or performance management or org design or recruitment or our engagement strategy? Let's make sure all of those systems have these strategic elements built into them. And then if they don't, where do we need to start? And that's where our strategic plan comes out of those two pieces. It's what do we need to do to move the needle from where we are to where we're going? Who's going to do what by when? And what are our next steps to do that? So basically, what are the strategic projects that we need to implement to solve those big picture problems? Is that a minute? A little bit over?
Fantastic. Moving. And what I heard in that, Rhys, is you're going to make some of these tools available to anyone in the audience. So that's fantastic. Let's try and tie this up in a bow. I think my friends at HCI are starting to nudge me a little bit. But here's in summary. I was going to throw it to our panelists, but we don't have time. I'm wondering what your takeaways are. You can drop it in the chat if you want. But this is in summary what we tried to accomplish today. And what I'm really interested in from our audience's perspective is this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how valuable, how much did you enjoy this webinar? So HCI, if you can get this poll off the ground. Here we go.
HCI says it's up.
Fantastic. Oh yeah, this one we're not sharing.
Yeah, let's keep moving forward. So if you don't like us, that's okay. Only we'll know.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you, and this totally ties into the MPS discussion that Rebecca was having. Okay, is that enough time? Let us now, what I want to do is, before we get to, are we going to have
the last 3 polls are all up so they can answer them. So we'll just talk about it really quickly.
Okay, then, the 3 polls are all up. So Rebecca, over to you for an offer from Bucketlist.
Sounds good. Thank you. And so, as I touched on briefly before, Bucketlist Rewards is a platform that makes it easy and fun for both employees, managers to recognize and reward each other for milestones, achievements, and a job well done. So if you're interested in seeing how our platform can support your P&C strategy, you can totally let us know in the poll. And even if you're not looking for R&R right this second, we're also really happy to share any resources that we have that might be helpful to you.
Great. So there. Thanks, Rebecca. And there's a poll that you can answer on that. And Rhys, I'll throw it to you for an offer from the good folks at Trailblaze.
That's us.
Hey, we are good folks.
Yeah, well, sometimes. Yeah. So this one's specifically about leadership development. We do 2 things: leadership development and people and culture consulting. The reason we picked this one, we had a feeling retention was going to be an issue, and the word cloud said it was. And so this is how many of our clients attack retention problems, is with leadership development programs to help influence leaders, help influence employee experience, and keep more of those people that we really want to keep around. And so if you want to learn some more, we'd love to talk to you. Reach out, and we promise no weird salesy stuff. We're happy just to talk about the program and let you take or leave what you would like.
Awesome. Thank you, Rhys. It is probably time for me to just throw it back to HCI, to Juanica. But we do really want to answer any questions that you have specifically or generally. So please drop us a line. Here's who we are. would love to chat, but I hope I've left you enough time. Juanica, back over to you. And thank you very much, Rebecca, Michelle, Rhys, and everyone here today for giving us some of your valuable time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for an enlightening presentation. Just a reminder to HCI members, today's webcast has been approved for HRCI and SHRM credit, as well as for HCI recertification. Your credits for attending this webcast will soon show up in your My HCI profile under the transcript tab. While you're there, don't forget to check out hci.org for even more insights, as well as information on our certifications, virtual conferences, premium membership, and more. I'd like to say one more thank you to our presenters today and to the good people at Bucketlist Rewards, Trailblaze Partners, and Visier. And I'd like to also thank you, our webcast viewer. Thanks for spending an hour with us. We'll see you next time.